Gon has a Nen Beast, a particularly sinister one, generated to heal him in exchange for that nasty Nen vow he made in order to gain enough power to kill Neferpito that one time. I cannot make this clear enough. Nothing in Hunter x Hunter is free. I don't care what magical wish genie you make a request to, and nothing in Hunter x Hunter is simple. We have a tendency to remember events in simplistic terms because it takes up less brain space that we'd rather be filling with viral pygmy hippos on the internet. And a lot of people, including myself, misremember what Gon's Nen vow actually was, as well as underestimate the requirements and results of Killua's wish. Not Nanika's powers, Killua's wish. And in this video, I'm going to show you why Nanika was not capable of undoing Gon's Nen vow, why there are 3 different interpretations of what that vow actually was, and how Nanika has found a rather creative solution to augment Gon's current state, rather than just magically make it go away. So the primary thing to note right off the bat is that Yoshihiro Togashi has never actually provided an explanation of what happened to Gon. What we have are 2 vague events. The first vague event is Gon making the Nen vow, and the second is Killua making a wish to Nanika. Neither of these are done in anything close to resembling precise language. To start, Gon's initial vow is a lot vaguer than most people remember. What he says is, enough, let it end. I don't care what happens to me now. I need all the power I'll ever have. Which is a terrifying thing to say. It's like staring into the eyes of Satan and making a deal with that there devil without negotiating what he actually wants about it. You're saying, hey, Mr. Devilman, I would like this unit of power, and as for what you want, don't care, take whatever. And most Hunter x Hunter fans tend to go with the explanation that Gon sacrificed his Nen use, but that's actually Neferpito's explanation. He must have done it by compressing his life. He was born with a gift, and he was willing to throw that gift away. He sacrificed all his Nen to do it. He'll never be able to use Nen again. So the major reason why we believe that Gon sacrificed his Nen use is because that's Pito's conclusion. And in most other series, I would probably take that at face value, that it's an instance of the author trying to convey information to the audience. However, characters in Hunter x Hunter are very often unreliable narrators and present deliberately misleading thoughts, which are very naturalistic to the characters themselves and give them a great sense of tangible realism. And see, this was contrasted immediately because Killua comes to a different conclusion to Pito. Whilst Pito believes that Gon has forsaken Nen use entirely, Killua speculates that Gon only pays a price for the specific power he uses in this form. So, one teeny tiny puncho, one teeny tiny price. However, a series of devastating and superfluous Jijankens all over Pito's corpse, well, that would equal a devastating and superfluous price. And that's why Killua was so desperate for Gon to just stop it, Gon, because he did the latter. And we also have a third hypothesis. Ilimi Zoldyck wasn't present, but he did the Nen maths, that Gon made a contract to defeat the soldier of a monster who forced Isaac Netero to sacrifice himself, and the only conclusion he could come to was that Gon made a deal for a fate worse than death. And Ilimi is probably the most accurate hypothesis, which makes sense because he is a more experienced Nen user than both Killua and Pito. And ultimately, we don't know exactly what that Nen vow was. However, Gon sacrificed much more than just Nen use. He gave everything he had available to him and potentially even more. So not being able to use Nen after being healed seems, almost a bit arbitrary. And it doesn't necessarily make sense with what Nanika did. If Nanika could undo the rest of the contract, then why not undo the Nen use as well? And the problem here is that Killua, he is no better than Gon when it comes to language, as his command to Nanika was, please Nanika, heal Gon. A rather frustratingly vague request, but Nanika obliges. It's almost like a medical situation where a patient arrives with an unknown fatal condition and they get healed by coming into contact with something at the hospital, and the doctors, they have no idea what happened or why, but they ship the patient out because someone else with a less Nen-related disease like lupus needs that bed. We don't know what Nanika had to do to, quote, heal Gon. Because remember, Nanika's wish granting is not as magical as it appears to be. Unlike the sponsor of today's video, Crystal of Atlan. Crystal of Atlan is a superb Magipunk MMORPG packed with fast-paced combat where players can choose from 11 classes completely freely with no gacha. Just unique skills and lots of versatile customizable builds, and so far I am personally really enjoying the Puppeteer. The attacks are just so satisfying and exhilarating, but I'm also really keen to check out the fighter next. Although I might have to wait on that because there is something much more exciting coming up, which is the upcoming update featuring a One Punch Man crossover. And as insanely desperate as I am for season 3 of One Punch Man, this is looking pretty damn cool as well. And what you're looking at right now is the PV for the first major update released at Summer Game Fest. I mean, just look at that there. That's the dude. That's Boris. Still to this day, my favorite One Punch Man villain. Or victim, whatever you want to call anyone who ends up fighting Saitama. And speaking of, there is the man himself. And mate, it looks like they've got Tatsumaki in the in the game as well. Very, very cultured choice. And I believe that this update is coming out in late June. It's quite soon, so stay tuned. So you can and should download Crystal of Atlan using my link in the description, available on iOS, Google Play, PC, and PlayStation 5, with 7-day login rewards, including a free outfit on day 2 and a free pet on day 3. And also, please use the code COATeamup528 for even more amazing goodness just for you. So definitely check it out. I've been having a lot of fun with it so far. But for now, it's back to you, me. When the Zoldyck attendant Yasuha wished to become a millionaire, Nanaka didn't just create $1 million out of nothing. Instead, what Nanaka had to do was take control of a blimp transporting at least $1 million and have it dump that money where Yasuha was standing. As insane of an ability as it is, there is some logic to it. Almost as if Nanaka can't actually create, but only manipulate. And when we apply this to Gon, the idea becomes that there did exist a mechanism on this planet that could have, quote, healed him, and Nanaka just had to find and implement it. So what is the thing it is that Nanaka did? Well, firstly, I should point out that Jing confirms Gon had aura when they were talking together at the top of the world tree. So Gon's net hasn't vanished. It's more like he's been locked out of using it. Jing also says that Gon has been returned back to, quote, normal. However, there is also a scrapped future ending by Yoshihiro Togashi where it's implied that Gon did regain aura use. Togashi's rejected ending D for Hunter x Hunter implies that Gon did eventually manage to wield aura once more and kept having adventures as a hunter well into his old age. So many that his granddaughter got annoyed at him for always leaving her grandmother Noko alone, and it more or less confirms that there is a mechanism to access Nen once more. Or at least there was at one stage, because again, it was a scrapped ending. However, this ending was written with the Chimera Antarch in mind. So it was constructed knowing about Gon's Nen vow. However, if Gon was still subject to the vow of giving up Nen as Pito suspected, then this would be impossible. Vows and restrictions are taken with the utmost seriousness in this world. They cannot be broken and their consequences are unavoidable. Therefore, if Gon's lack of aura use was a result of his vow, there is no chance he could ever get it back. However, even if the impossible could happen, and the result of Nanaka's power was to undo a Nen vow, then that doesn't make a lot of sense, because there should be no reason that Gon shouldn't be able to use aura at the moment. Meaning the conclusion I've come to for the sake of this video is that Nanaka did not reset Gon or necessarily erase the vow, but instead had to augment it with something else. And Gon's current state is a result of a complex series of decisions and restrictions placed upon him by a being from the Dark Continent with access to a range of options that humanity can't even begin to dream of yet. We could definitely narrow it down though, because Nanaka is the Dark Continent's Calamity Eye, referred to as the codependence of desire. So it's implied that I cannot, or at least it prefers not to exist without a host. Without a host, it is very, very vulnerable, but when it finds its perfect host, it is unstoppable. And one of the reasons why Nanaka has always kind of bothered me is because at face value, it's very counter to everything we've been presented in Hunter x Hunter, which is that there must always be a price to pay for power. Whereas in the chairman election arc, Nanaka meeting Killua's requests does serve as a pretty blatant deus ex machina. Like old Shakespearean tales where the gods would descend from the sky and instantly fix all of the bad things for a happy ending. But as we've already explored, there must be a cost for everything. As much as it looks like it, there was no finger snap, and Killua wasn't specific with how Nanaka had to heal Gon. So one way to achieve Gon's current state of Gonliness might be to do what the eye do best and form a codependence. Maybe plant an eye into Gon and form its own little symbiotic existence. The eye cannot exist without a host, and the Gon cannot exist without an eye. And I often make this assumption that I probably shouldn't, but I have a tendency to assume that all of the eye function the same way. Eye isn't just one being, it's an entire species, and I've always assumed that they were all capable of the wish-granting ability. However, that may not be the case. Once Nanaka took up residence within Alaka, the two of them may have developed wish-granting as their own personal Team Hatsu. Wish-granting would be especially relevant to Alaka, as she was a very inquisitive child who just wanted to do and have the things. And Alaka has been effectively imprisoned for most of her life, so there's something quite innocent and lovely about wanting the power to wish for anything. And not only that, but not to make the wishes herself, but to grant the wishes of others. And in that way, Alaka's love for Killua may have allowed the programming of a vow that kept him safe from retribution, but potentially at a much greater cost to anyone who is not Killua. And what I'm getting at here is that in some universe, if this is indeed indeed the case, then Gon could have his own eye with its own unique ability that has responded to him. And this could explain why Gon isn't able to use his aura, because that aura is going to feeding and sustaining the eye, which is how the Kakin Guardian Spirit Beasts are powered. They're given life by an external source, but live off the aura of their assigned prince. And they also grant a special ability to meet the needs of said prince. But they also have another potentially relevant point to this discussion, which is that the princes themselves cannot see their or any other Guardian Spirit Beast. Other Nen users can, but this opens the door to the potential of a Nen Beast existing with a condition that it simply cannot be seen by anyone or anything, which would be why Jing didn't see such a thing when he was with Gon on the World Tree. Although when it comes to Eye in particular, it also has the ability to hide from Nen users. No one could detect it. And so it's very possible that Gon himself may never be able to use aura again. But whatever symbiotic presence he has now, that's a very different situation. Or Gon simply needs to channel that aura use via a different mechanism. We don't use the aura nodes anymore. It's like a Nen tap that he can only turn on once he figures out how. With Nanika, the way to turn on that tap is to grant Alaka's requests. So what if with Gon, the way to get things going is to complete the requests of his Nen Beast? Say if Gon wants enough aura to use in a basic 10, then the eye requires him to do 10 push-ups. If he wants more, then run a kilometer. Fairly simple stuff because Alaka's requests were quite simple for the most part. And then every X amount of situations, something huge will be asked of Gon that he has to complete, or it'll leave him completely vulnerable. Like say giving up an arm, which Gon has already done ever so many times already. Or we go with the Killua theory that Gon's original vow was equal price for equal product. So the first request is extremely simple and it allows Gon to withdraw as much aura as he wants. However, the next time he needs aura, he needs to pay a price equal to the amount he withdrew on the previous occasion. A codependence of desire where one party is always going to an extreme to meet the needs of the other. In general, I feel like I'd find a Hunter x Hunter character like that quite interesting. Someone who effectively has infinite power could wreck anyone, even the Ant King, but they need to be willing to pay the price for that power afterwards. And Gon could even take some inspiration from Kite and add a gambling mechanic for higher risk and more importantly, higher reward. Fulfill a basic request and you get to spin a wheel and see what aura quantity we land on. Or complete a much harder request and spin a higher level of wheels, stuff like that. At its very core, Eye's power functions through sacrifice though. Even accessing the power in the first place requires the sacrifice on the part of the host, and this is one of the few explanations that I feel I'd be happy with if Gon ever did get his Nen back. I think I'd feel a bit meh if it just turned out that Gon had to train really hard to reawaken his Nen in much the same way as he did the first time. And really, Gon made a sacrifice to gain power, Killua made a sacrifice to gain a Gon, the sacrifice being to leave him afterwards, and now Gon needs to make a sacrifice to gain power once more. Or not, maybe he can just keep doing homework on Whale Island, but I don't think that's going to keep him interested for too long.